welcome back to Stacy's Kitchen. Today I'm going to be making a fabulous weeknight chicken dish, a crispy chicken thigh with a creamy Dijon sauce, some rosemary baby potatoes, and some steamed broccoli. Amazing, delicious, and super, super simple. Okay, to start out, I have my breading mix in here, which is about a half a cup of panko, half a cup of almond flour, a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a teaspoon of granulated onion, oh, that's my oven, and a teaspoon of dried thyme and a half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, as well as a teaspoon of fresh kosher salt. So mix that together. If you wanted to go completely more keto friendly as far as the breading, you could eliminate the panko, double up on the almond flour. It would make it a little bit crispier, but it would have a great texture. You could certainly do that as an option. All right, in my bowl, I have a couple of beaten eggs with some milk. And all I'm gonna do is demo really quick how to make a quick egg wash and breading on our chicken. So taking my chicken, dipping it twice, and then popping it right into the breading. I'm going to try to do it cleanly, but we all know how that goes. Sometimes it works and sometimes not so much. I'm going to go ahead and put this on. So you get a decent coating. Let's take a good look at that. You can see the coating on that one. I'm just going to put it back onto this plate. I just wanted to show you how to get the chicken ready and get it breaded. At that point, I would go ahead and put it on a foil-lined baking sheet at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes, just depending again on the size of the thighs that you're using. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and use chicken breasts for this, you certainly could do that, and that would work out just as well. Again, I like chicken thighs because they're always juicy, delicious. They're slightly more forgiving if you tend to overcook things. They just have a great taste to them. Okay, let me wash my hands off very quickly. What I have done ahead of time is I have cooked up some chicken ahead of time so that it would be ready for me to share with you in a little while. The other thing that I've done is I have taken about maybe a pound or two of new potatoes, sliced them up, into halves or fourths depending, put them in a bowl with some olive oil, about a teaspoon of rosemary, a teaspoon of kosher salt, and about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. Mix that together, spread it also onto a foil-lined pan, and popped it into the oven at about 375 as well. Why have two different temperatures if you don't have to? It makes no sense. Throw them in the same time. I would put my chicken on the top and my potatoes on the bottom if it were me. That's usually what I do. So my potatoes and chicken are done, but let's get to the star of the show, the sauce. Move this out of the way. Okay, so for my sauce, so far, what I have going on the pan behind me, I've got in a saucepan. I've been sweating down some minced shallots. You can see, you can't really see that well, but I have been sweating down a minced shallot. And to that, I'm going to add a half a cup of white wine. I did a Pinot Grigio, something really light and crisp. You don't want sweet. That would be a terrible idea. As well as a half a cup of chicken stock. I use a chicken bone broth. I'm going to pour that together and put that back onto the stove. To this, I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of black pepper. Pop that in there. And I'm going to add the star of the show. I have some organic Dijon mustard. I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of that. Get that in there. No, let me see, about a tablespoon. Now that I have it all over my hands, wash when you store it in the refrigerator. Don't store it upside down because sometimes you get a little more out than you wanted to at the wrong time. Okay, so I'm gonna stir these together and pop it back onto my stove to get reducing. When it reduces a little bit, I'm then going to add about half a cup to a cup of heavy cream. Just play it by ear and see how creamy you'd like for it to be. So I'm going to crank my heat to about medium high. Really, you want to make sure that you're stirring this together really well so that the Dijon gets completely incorporated into the white wine in the broth. You also want to make sure that you are cooking out the alcohol so that you don't get that alcohol taste in your sauce, because that's not really delightful. So we'll let this come up to a simmer, bring it up, and then we will add our cream. Ooh, whoa, almost lost it. In the meantime, let me pull this off. Let that sit for a minute, let it do its thing, and let me show you the finished product. I have some broccoli over here that I steamed. Easy peasy, you could steam it on the stove, you could steam it in the microwave, whatever works for you. I also have my chicken thighs right here. Again, you always want to cook your chicken to a 165 internal temperature, nothing less. If you want to cook it at 162, 163 and take it out of the oven, taking into account there's going to be carryover heat. Especially if you're working with chicken breast, you're going to want to take it out at about 162 so that you don't overcook it, because dry chicken is just nobody's friend. All right, here are my tasty and delicious roasted potatoes with rosemary roasted potatoes. So I'll put some of those on my plate. Ooh, got a little messy with them. You can see that they've, and I'll show you in just a second, they've taken on a beautiful golden color. Okay, you get a good look at that. Yum! It's already smelling so good. All right, I can hear that my sauce is starting to simmer and bubble, which is exactly what I want it to do. So we'll take a look at it and let it go for just another minute or two before we go ahead and add in our heavy cream to reduce. Now, if you didn't want to do potatoes, you wanted to stay, you know, keto friendly or whatever, you could certainly do like a mashed cauliflower. If it were me, I would add in that same olive oil and rosemary to get those same flavors that you're going to be having to pair with the chicken, because it'll just kind of carry the theme over, and it just makes everything gel together beautifully. All right, so about 30-35 minutes for the chicken, 20 to 30 minutes on the potatoes, depending on how many potatoes and how big they are. Both are $3.75. I will, of course, list the ingredients for this great dish in the comments. I can hear that my sauce is doing great things. It's been 2 or 3 minutes, so I know that my wine has probably had the alcohol burn off of it. So we're at a good point where we can turn it down, reduce the heat, and add in our cream. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it down. You don't want to add cream to something that's already boiling, because it's just going to start to separate. And all right, so I'm actually going to pull it off of the heat so you can see. I'm adding in, I might not do the whole, I had a cup in here, but I don't think I'm going to use the whole cup. I'm going to go with about 2/3 of the cup and then let it sit and simmer down. Now, in a perfect world, where time wasn't of the essence and I wasn't doing a live video, I would allow this a lot of time to reduce. When you put it on low and you just let it simmer and do its thing, it's gradually going to cook down and cook down and cook down and thicken up to a beautiful, beautiful consistency. If you wanted a slight variation, you could add in a little bit of Parmesan cheese. That would be lovely. And that would also act to kind of thicken it up a little bit. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't add flour, because it's not going to have time to cook out and you'll get that gritty raw flour taste, which is just yuck. Let's just not do that. So I'm going to let this keep cooking for another minute or two and grab a fork and a knife and start to get my chicken cut. I'm actually going to increase the heat just a touch on that. I have a fork and a knife here. You can see that the potatoes have a really good color on them. I'll come over here and show you. Have a really great color on them. They've got nice brown. And let's see how the potatoes came out. I'm telling you what, baby potatoes should go down like the side dish of thing. They're just delicious and they're so easy. Excuse me, Peppa. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. My sauce has been busy reducing on the stove, and it's time to add it to my chicken and potatoes and give it a taste. All right, so it has reduced by about half. And you can see it's got a really good color to it. It's still a little bit thin. In a perfect world, I'd probably let it go a little bit longer, but I'm hungry. So I'm going to drizzle my sauce over my crispy chicken and delicious potatoes. Keep going. And try it out. Okay, so you can see, like I said, the potatoes have gotten to be a golden brown. They've got a perfect crust on them. If you want to, towards the end of the cook, when they're in the oven, if you want to pop them under the broiler function for maybe a minute or two, just keep an eye on them, because if you put it under the broiler, you really got to keep an eye on it. So you can pop them under the broiler for a minute or two to get extra brown. So good. Okay, now the chicken. Again, let me see if I can show you. Gotten a tasty and delicious golden crust to it. Let's try it out with our creamy, dreamy sauce. And getting that perfect bite, if you can do it with your crispy potatoes, with the sauce and everything, it just makes for a delicious, delicious bite. So let's try it out. So good. That touch of Dijon adds the most perfect, like almost like an umami, sort of. It makes it sound way fancier than it is. It's just white wine, broth, cream, onions, garlic, or rather shallot, garlic, touch of Dijon, and call it a night. I hope that you have enjoyed. Be sure to like my video, subscribe, and hey, if you can, share it. With love from my kitchen to yours. Bye. See you next time.